Welcome into Overtime, presented by McDonald's. Dewey, Dailey, John Bruce, episode 31 of the show. We've got a pretty packed week coming up this week. No live streams for us last week, although the game we were looking at ended up probably being the game of the week as it went into double overtime. Brock was there for that one. So maybe we see a story on that. We'll see. I think double overtime might warrant a story. But two girls games coming up this week for us, two boys games as well. Should be a fun week for us. Should be a fun week for any high school basketball-loving individuals out there. Is once again an action-packed week coming up. But we're going to talk about last week as well. Had some pretty interesting outcomes and some big performances. And we'll preview a little bit of what we have coming up this week as well. So it should be a fun show here today.
Yeah, it should be a good time. I feel like we didn't have as many big individual performances, but we had some really good team performances across between boys and girls, and we'll really get into that. I got to spend the day yesterday down at the Chet Hudson Classic down at Fairfield, and I don't know when these like the classics and showcases and whatnot started. I know back when I was in school, the Zane Trace ran the Tip-Off Classic, which they still do. But I don't know if they put out the blueprint on how to do it, but every one of them is just so well done. Like yesterday was 6 games. The only game that was like maybe a little behind, like none of the games were behind. They were all ahead of schedule or right on schedule. So everything, like first game starts at 11, next game was set for 12:45, and it was like it started at 12:45, and it was just so well done. Shawnee State did it perfect this year at the Battle in 740. Logan, I thought, did a really good job with theirs as well. So, and then the Davion Classic, which is on Saturday, which I won't be there for the whole day, but I'm going to get there for a little bit because we've got
Circleville and Amanda that night.
But I know based off of being there last year, it was really well ran. So kudos to those places that. And Alexander was another one that runs it really well.
What was that? What's it called? Not the classic, but the arena.
The alley.
Yeah, alley. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really cool gym, and I really like Fairfield's gym because it's a lot like that in the Shack, because I know Eastern Brown has a similar one where the teams go through the middle of the one side to go out. And
is that the size of gym you would come? I've never been to Fairfield.
I think it's
about the same size as
I think
Fairfield?
it's about the same. Yeah. I like it. I mean, it's got some nice designs. It's got a newer court design. It's got a big old lion on the floor.
Okay.
And
is it their logo that like we see like when we put it on our scoreboard, or is it different?
I feel like it's different. I think it's more of like just a lion, like a full lion. It's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not like a lion's head. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And they've got it on their padding behind the baskets and everything, and it's just really well done. And it was done for a really good cause and everything. And if you get a chance to go down there next year, I think it's probably gonna be the same week to get down there and see some good basketball, but also see some good people down there as well. And the weather on the way there was not good. I'll tell you what, like I've been to a lot of places in Southeast Ohio, and I feel like I could get to every one of them without looking at a map. Thank goodness I looked at a map yesterday, because for some reason I was thinking Leesburg was where Buckskin is. Buckskin is in the Greenfield School District, and I had a interview there a few years ago, and for some reason I was thinking, okay, so like if you're going down 28 towards Greenfield, there's like a really hard, like an S turn more or less, and I used to think that you turn left there. Leesburg's like 12 miles outside of Greenfield on the other side, so it actually took me a little bit longer, and then the snow yesterday also didn't help in the morning.
Didn't Buckskin used to have like an SV? Weren't they in the SVC
Buckskin,
or something?
They're in the Ross County League.
Maybe that's because I remember them they had like a 1,000-point score.
Yeah,
I remember
a couple 1,000-point scores, and they were right near the end. My brother actually scored 40 in a junior high game there.
For Buckskin?
No, he went to Bishop Fleget, and they lost like 88-85. Like the court was not big, and it was just like you get it out, you're on the other end, and he went crazy in that game. But I mean, they still lost. I remember going there because it's such a small gym, and then when I interviewed there, it was for the PE position, and then coming in after me was Pete Holland. I was like, I'm not getting this job.
All right, so we'll talk boys, girls, individual performances, team performances, some game reviews, and then some game previews coming up this week as well. As always, timestamps down below. Go down there if you see something you like, skip right to it. Makes it a lot easier so you don't have to sit through the entire video. So, so we'll start off with boys' 2 performances individually from the same, or not from the same game, but from the same day. Both of these from
sort of, because Larkin Friends was earlier in the week.
So it wasn't. Oh, okay. But so this performance wasn't from yesterday.
Yeah,
but it
but
was.
I'm going to also talk about it, though.
Okay, but nonetheless, Larkin Friend for Fairfield, a triple-double against Paint Valley.
Yeah, on Tuesday they won 70-45 over Paint Valley at 18 points on 10 shots. Pretty efficient. 11 rebounds, 10 assists. I think he also had 3 steals in the game. He's averaging 15 points, 10.4 rebounds, 6.4 assists. The Lions are 10-0 on the year. Last night, I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth on the game, but last night I would say he probably doesn't feel like he played that well against Western, and then he still had 9 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. I mean, it's like, and then in the fourth quarter he had 6 points. It was like when they needed him, and that's what you need out of a point guard. And they went 24-1 last year. They returned really one starter. I think Gabe Fouch may have started last year, and I know Trey House played some big minutes down in the tournament for them. So they had some other pieces coming back, but Friend was the big one that people thought about with that team coming back. And when you have a point guard mixed in with some really good classmates, because I think Cade Miller's also a senior, that those guys at every level they've won. It typically starts with point guard, but when you've got, like, just watching them against Western when they didn't play particularly well, they just had different guys step up and just make winning plays at different times. And I was really impressed with seeing them down there at Fairfield yesterday. They play one game this week, which is against Manchester on Friday, with an excellent chance to go to 11-0. Manchester's not bad, but I feel like Fairfield probably has a decided advantage in that contest.
Yeah, Fairfield's one of the, like, obviously we've seen them in girls a couple of times over the last few years, but we haven't seen them, at least you have, obviously,
Yeah.
but I haven't seen them in boys over the last few years. And and like Western has been kind of a weird team, right? So now I think they've lost
8 straight, I think.
7. Did they lose earlier in the week?
They lost
to Eastern. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they've now lost. So that would put them at 3-8. So after starting 3-0, they've dropped 8 straight. But it's like, I don't know. The Shack is.
I still wouldn't pick against Western.
No,
Just
I mean,
saying
I didn't think, because we're not going to specifically talk about that game, but I kind of figured Eastern might win, but I didn't think it'd be by whatever, like 20 plus. I don't remember exactly what it was.
It was 64-42, I think.
Was it? So it was 22.
Yeah, I think so.
But I don't know. Western's just a weird team. I feel like it's just kind of like they can just get hot, and if they get hot, you're in trouble. And I think that maybe is what happened against Fairfield. Now, I don't know. The Shack is a little weird when you get in, like, the non-league. I mean, any league is weird when you play teams from another league, because while you might be dominant in your league, that may not translate to a non-league win or a non-league loss, whatever it is. So for Fairfield, I think we're just going to have to see a little more, because I know they have the game against Miami Trace a little bit later. It's like February
5th or something.
The early days of February. I think we're sort of eyeballing that one to get down there as a chance to look at them. I think that would be.
And they've got North Adams. And
yeah.
But the thing with Fairfield is somebody that we haven't talked about, which is Logan McIntosh. He's a junior. Man, if they can get him going, because he's about 6'4", he can shoot the 3, he can rebound. He had 3 assists in the first quarter yesterday. But then he ended up with 8 points, and it seems like if he can get things going in the right direction, that team is very scary, because they've got 4 good seniors, and then you mix in some good sophomores or some good juniors like McIntosh, and you got a really scary group. But with Western, like, that was the only game I sat on baseline for. The other ones I was up in the crowd. It just was got a little crowded.
And to get your back up against the wall.
Yeah. So I sat baseline and I was on Western side, and I'm telling you, those kids are all in, and the coaches are all in, and the intensity on the sideline I thought was really good. You wouldn't have expected. You probably would have thought their record was flipped. They are not tall, but they play super hard. I mean, they were winning at the half, and that was without Cam James scoring. Like, he didn't score in the first half. They had 4 different guys hit threes in the first half. It's a team that I think, well, might as well just get into talk about that now, since Drew Hagee had 21 in the game. James ended up with 8. On the day, Trey House had 15 for Fairfield, and Gabe Fouch had 10. But it was tight. They were up 5 at the half. Western was, and then Fairfield got up, I think, 10 early in the fourth. It kind of slowed things down, but man, Western just ramped up the pressure. And one of the big things, they had 1 foul until about a minute and a half left, so they were able to really pressure Fairfield, make them uncomfortable. And Fairfield took a couple of quick shots. Wasn't ideal what Coach Williams wanted there, but the last minute, instead of waiting to get fouled, Friend found Trey House inside for a layup. And then they got a rebound, and Gabe Fouch had leaked out. Friend found him for a layup, and it was like, clock keeps running. And Hagee hit a 3 at the buzzer, which made it the 3-point game. But it was a back and forth game throughout. And Coach Williams, Quentin Williams, 34-1 as a varsity head coach through his first year and a half. I think the people in Leesburg are pretty happy with what they've got going right now, and I know they're really excited for their future as well, as they have some really good young classes.
And the regular season winning streak continues for Fairfield. Some tough games coming up this week, or not this week, but some tough games coming up in the near future. So it'd be impressive if they make it through another season.
Yeah, it would be very impressive.
Did they draw a 1 seed last year in the tournament?
They were the 1 seed.
I mean, I would assume if you go
well, and then last year they had a player that they lost halfway through the year that was averaging like 18 points a game, and they still finished the regular season unbeaten. So it's a program that is definitely on the upswing, obviously, and it'd be nice to see them make a deep tournament run. But you mentioned in the non-league they played Federal Hawking down at the Alley, and Federal Hawking has 4 or 5 losses, but they're a really good team, and they ended up kind of running away with that. I think that was 60-47. So they've done a good job of playing in the non-league as well, but I feel like the only team in the league that has a good chance to challenge them is North Adams, and that's only a one-time. So.
And that's at North Adams, correct?
Is it?
I can check. I thought when I first looked at it, it was at North Adams. It is at Fairfield. That's coming up on the 26th.
26th.
Probably be the boys' shack game of the year, I would assume.
Yeah, I would guess that's probably the shack championship game.
I don't know if North Adams has played Eastern Brown yet. I'm assuming they have, since they're on the same side. Yeah, and I mean, North Adams only beat Eastern Brown by 9 their first time. They haven't played a second time yet. That's coming up on the 19th. So within a week of each other, North Adams is probably going to play their top 2 toughest opponents in the shack on the boys' side, I would say.
I'll tell you what, they got a nice stretch coming. Man, North Adams is a real tough stretch coming up. They've got Chesapeake on Saturday, which I'll talk about later. White Oak, who Weston Blair was in a walking boot, and he was averaging like 20 points a game in his last 4 games for the Wildcats. So, I mean, that's a big loss at this point. Then they're at Eastern, then South Webster at home, Fayetteville, at Fairfield, then at Portsmouth. Like, that is
North Adams?
Yeah, that's for North Adams. Yeah, that's a heck of a stretch they've got coming up. But their last 4 games, 73-39, 75-31, 77-43, 77-42.
Well, a lot of those were in the class.
Yeah.
It wasn't last week. I think it was the week before that class. What was that, the Adams County Classic?
Yeah, so they seem like they've gotten things going, but things will get
They haven't lost
tougher.
since the Minford game, have they? No. So they were they started the year off 3-3 or something.
They were 2-3 to start.
Yeah. So they've won what, 6 in a row now?
Just 4. They haven't played very much. Yeah.
Well, 4 in a row is better than 4 losses.
Yes.
I guess.
Which, talking about 4 in a row, we'll get to that in our next.
Yep, Joedy Ater for the Adena Warriors, 30 points in their impressive win over the Hillsborough Indians, who are 6-3 on the season, 5 straight now for Adena.
Yeah. Impressive is, the perfect way to describe that, because
23-point win.
If there was a game that I thought may have been a blowout one way or the other, it was probably that one, and it was flipped because Hillsborough, although they lost to Eastern this week as well, Hillsborough with their win at Jackson was probably
who just beat Wheelersburg.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like it's a really tough team, and then Adena hasn't played particularly good defense on the season, and you might look at it like, oh, they gave up 57 points. It's not great, but man, this was the best defensive game I've seen from Adena. They're swarming everywhere. Tate Davis was able to get going. He had 16 points in the game. Dorian Stewart had 16 and 10 rebounds for Hillsborough as well. But for the most part, this was all Adena from the get-go. And I was very impressed. Joedy Ater, obviously, with 30 points. I think they'll get the stats put up on Max Preps probably later on today on what his shooting percentage was. But I would say his shooting percentage was very good because it was a lot of layups. It was a lot of, his shooting chart was pretty ideal for having a game like that. He knocked down a couple jumpers, but for the most part, it was getting in good position and, getting inside of defenders and making sure he didn't get blocked as well. So, really impressive win for them. As you mentioned, 5 straight. He's averaged 19.9 points a game in that stretch. And the thing with Adena was, like, Friday they play Paint Valley, who's not very good, and they only won 53-50. They were losing at the half, so it was like,
I feel like have Hillsborough and Paint Valley played? I feel like that's a matchup that probably happens. Either way, I think Hillsborough would probably win that game by more than 5 points, I assume. So it's kind of weird. But.
So I wasn't sure how this game was going to go, and then, just Adena came out. I think they scored 23 in the first quarter. They were 9 of 11 from the field in the first quarter. In the third quarter, they were 11 for 15 from the field. So not only were they very efficient scoring-wise, but they were playing at the pace they wanted to play at. Bryson Smith had 10. He had 6 assists also. Easton Hennis hit his first 3 threes. He ended up with 13. Lucas King quietly had 12 and 7. Like, it was just a really impressive game overall for the Warriors. And bring a kid like Christian Heath off the bench. He had 6 points, 3 assists, but like it felt like he was making little plays like crazy. And I didn't look to see what he shot from 3 on Friday, but he was shooting. He was 7 of 13 coming into the weekend from 3 on the season. So once again, probably needs to shoot the ball more because I mentioned that last week. But yeah, they played 7 guys, all 7 scored. Caden Lee probably played the best I've seen him play. Did a good job of setting up their offense. And really, once Hillsborough tried to pressure the ball, between Lee, Hennis, and Smith, they just broke down the defense and were able to get it ahead to King and Ater in scoring positions. So, I was really impressed with what Adena's done. This week, they play Southeastern on Tuesday and then Saturday against Westville, both at the Big Blue Wigwam.
What is that? Adena.
Somebody called it that on Southeastern Preps a long time ago. Back when people posted on there that weren't problematic things on there.
Hillsborough does play Paint Valley.
Okay.
But, it's not this coming Saturday, but the next one. Okay. And that's at Hillsborough. So.
Yeah, and for Hillsborough, it's a disappointing loss, but at the same time, you're off to a 6-3 start. I think they won 6 games last year. So
6-19, I think.
Yeah. So you're in a better position. You've got your backcourt is coming back next year. The Kibler kid is going to be tough to replace, and so is Stewart. Those are 2 of their front court guys, but you got like a Nick Burns that plays really hard inside for them, so that they're in good shape to still have success throughout this year. But they've got a big one on Tuesday with Washington Courthouse to try to get themselves right. And that's after Courthouse is coming off a loss also to Bishop Reedy. So gonna be that'll be an interesting game. We'll see. I don't know. Like, I'm thinking Courthouse wins, but mostly it's at Courthouse.
It's hard to tell.
Yeah, but FAC, I don't really know. Like, I felt like I had a really good grasp on Miami Trace, and then they scored 5 points in the second half against Circleville, and like that game, that was a crazy score because I see Miami Trace is up 34-17 at the half, and then
how do you score 5 points and a half? Like seriously.
I know that's
like I just
well. So I see that. I see 34-17, and then Litter Media put out Tigers win. I'm like, okay, that's wrong because the score is 46-39. So I'm like, well, I could see them, scoring 12 and winning by 7. It's still not very good. But then it's just Circleville just locked them down and just
there had to just missing shots. Just couldn't get.
Well, I couldn't. I tried to rewatch it, and all I saw was just like random spots in the court. I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really get to see the full game.
Yeah,
but,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird week in the FAC, and then we got the weird score updates of the Chillicothe. Apparently, JV score got posted like it was a varsity score.
That was a bit odd.
And then the varsity score got posted later. I'm like, what's happened? Because I wanted to talk about Western Brown because I thought they needed to move to the Southeast District because I thought they were going to be 4-0 against them, but Chillicothe handled business like I thought they would.
Technically, still 3-0 against them.
Well, I know, but I mean, Chillicothe is located in our district. We just don't have enough Division I teams. So what's going to happen when they go to 7 divisions, 6 divisions, whatever they're going to go to? Like, is Chillicothe going to drop to Division II? Them and Logan, they can actually have some tournament success because it's like Chillicothe. I know they made it to the district, but
last year,
no, this is a few years ago. But Brandon Knoll is ridiculous at Wright State. He's almost averaging a double as a sophomore, like a 4th-year sophomore. Mm-hmm. Jaden Moffmer's averaging close to 20 points a game for Cedarville. And then Trey Beard won a national championship and starts at Shawnee State, who's pretty good again. So, like, imagine that team in a slightly smaller division. Yeah.
All right, so we'll talk some team performances as well as some game reviews. Fairland and South Point, I think that was one of the games we previewed last week, and it lived up to the hype that we sort of gave it. As Fairland comes away with the win 61-59. Chase Allen with 18, Brody Buchanan with 17, Noah Markham with 14, and Keegan Smith adding on 10 in the Dragons win over South Point.
Yeah, I was able to watch this back on live stream, and Brody Buchanan really stood out in this game because he was on Caleb Lovely the whole game. Lovely scored, I think, either 9 or 11 in the first quarter and only ended up with 14. Now, he's face guarding him. So on the rare occasion he did get the ball, it was kind of cool how well Fairland did it. But as soon as he got the ball, a second guy was with him. So it was pretty much he's getting doubled as soon as he got the ball. But man, they did everything they could to slow Caleb Lovely down. And really for South Point, Zathan Haney really kept him in that game as he made a couple of big shots there in the fourth quarter. I don't know his exact numbers, but I thought it was the best game he's played so far this year. And he had some big games for him last year, so that would be a big improvement for them. But overall for Fairland, I mean, that just overall the OVC is very, very loaded because obviously we see with Chesapeake beating Portsmouth this week, and Ironton's still undefeated in the league.
I was going to say Ironton is now the only team without a league loss.
Yeah, and then you've got teams with 1 league loss, which would be Fairland, South Point, Portsmouth, and then Chesapeake has 2. And then, like we mentioned, Ironton not having a league loss, but then Colgrove, who hasn't won a league game, took them to overtime.
What was it, 72-68?
Something like that. Yeah, so it's a very tough league. You got to bring it every night, and Fairland showed – it's really tough to win at Fairland, and I couldn't see because I think it was from the huddle cam. you couldn't see down on the
home side.
Or I think it's the visitor side, because the home side looks huge on the opposite side,
Right,
and it looks almost as big as the Waverly new gym on the one side. Like it's really big on one side, but the student section was on the other side, and it looked packed on the far side that you could see. Yeah. So I bet that crowd was kind of nasty, because just how close those schools are together and how big of rivals they are. So it's a really big win for Fairland, and really for South Point. I mean, they're 5-4. They've got to be one of the better 5-4 teams in the state.
Fairland?
No, Fairland's 6-3. So South Point's 5-4. So that league, those teams are going to be battle tested, and I wouldn't want to see any of them in the postseason.
No, and I'm telling you, that's going to set up some dangerous, 7, 8, 9, and 10 seeds in the Division III tournament, because you're going to have a team like South Point that, I mean, they'll finish with a better win percentage than, they're not going to finish, 16 and 15. Well, they don't play that many games.
I know, but 12 and 12 or something like that.
But they're going to finish probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 games over 500. And if they don't, somebody will. Maybe Portsmouth might finish closer to 500. And they're going to get matched up with, whoever it is, like a South, or not a South Point, like a Minford or so. Like the path to getting out of the districts, and even in once into the regionals, I feel like there's going to be some teams that were seeded outside of the top 6 that make it a little further, because that's just how competitive it's been, and the OVC is a big part of that.
Well, and then you mentioned, we talked about Western a little bit earlier, and Western, I feel like, is the same way in Division 4. Yeah. It's just these are teams that maybe you don't want to run into, because they're well coached and are very dangerous. And when you have 1 or 2 really good players, it makes it a really scary matchup. For South Point this week, they play Guy Academy on Tuesday, and then at Portsmouth Friday.
Yeah, planning on being there. Haven't put it into motion quite yet. I'm gonna make a phone call tomorrow. So actually, I won't make a phone call.
Yeah, you'll have a face-to-face meeting.
Yeah, we'll be down there tomorrow. And talking about how Fairland brings the crowd at home, I'm hoping it's a big crowd.
Yeah.
Because I've only been down to Portsmouth once, and they had the mezzanine level folded up.
Yeah.
When I was talking to their AD, said they're probably gonna have it out for that game. I mean, we've talked about it a bunch in terms of teams that are going to meet in the regular season between 2 area teams. Probably the biggest girls game of the season.
Yeah.
Now, once we get into the postseason, and you have, what's a good Division III girls team besides Portsmouth?
Adena.
Or West, or
Minford, Wheelersburg.
Yeah, any of those teams, you'll get matchups in the postseason, or North Adams.
Yeah.
I mean, you get some of the, Fairland and Untitled kind of in Division II, but in terms of the regular season, definitely going to be the biggest game.
Yeah, it's the biggest matchup, and really, I hope it's a similar crowd. Like I was Wednesday, I was at Untitled and Amanda-Clearcreek girls, and it was completely packed. And let's hope that this
doesn't take a lot.
No, it doesn't. And Portsmouth's a bigger gym, but let's hope that it's pretty similar on that. But this week, Fairland, very similar to the girls, they play Portsmouth, but this one is actually at Fairland on Tuesday, and then on Friday they are at Colgrove. Trap game.
It's a trap game.
Yeah,
we'll talk a little more about trap games.
Yes.
Hey, that's one of the few predictions
you did
I've
get
gotten
that
right. We'll talk about that here coming up. But
after we celebrate something real quick.
Celebrate.
Look,
Kerwin Frost being added.
We do have Kerwin Frost. Let's go, Kerwin. Does his hat come off?
Yeah.
Oh, his hair comes off.
Just pull him out of his clothes. Just pull the nucky out.
He's got a pencil pencil tattoo on his face.
We just got to get the worst one, but we'll have that one next week.
Yes.
And then the gold nugget
Hopefully.
will just kind of be a myth.
If we don't have it next week, that means you probably got
killed.
Yeah.
We'll see. But in terms of celebrating, thank you to Coach Imnett, I believe, for their girls sort of pointed this out. It was right after we filmed last week.
Like literally was within, yeah.
Because we filmed a day later last week because we filmed on Wednesday, I think. But filming on Sunday this week, and now we're going to give props to the Clay Panthers' first win in 2 years for the boys team, 35-25 over Oak Hill. Oak Hill now, well, they were 3-7, and they lost to Sims Valley 3 days later. Now 3-8. They're at Western on Friday, who, I mean, we just talked about, took Fairfield to the brink. So probably a good chance for Fairfield to maybe get back in the win column. Or not for Fairfield, for Western to get back in the win column, as they've dropped a ton in a row. But for
it
Oak
seems
Hill,
like
it's kind of been a weird
Oak Hill's kind of
year.
on that same path as well. So I mean, but when you're kind of in like kind of the mid range, I think one injury can really. I don't know if that's the case, but one injury can make a big difference for a team, especially in our area. If you're not one of the bigger schools that has a whole lot of depth.
Well, and I think the loss to Sims Valley was single digits. I think
Yeah, it
it was
ended
like
up being
52-44 or something like that. So it was relatively close. And that's an SOC2 league game. So, man, the SOC2 is kind of weird.
Yeah,
It's not as weird as the FAC, but
I feel like
I don't know. It's just like it's hard to get a grasp because coming in like after we saw Western and Huntington, and we'll get back to Clay. We'll give them their props here in a second.
Yeah.
We just kind of got off track, but like after I saw them against Huntington, I'm like, man, them in Northwest, and even like Eastern, like I don't know. I thought that Eastern and Western matchup would have been a lot tighter 2 months ago. Well, not a month ago than it actually was.
Well, and
just a
then
few
you
days
would have
ago.
thought it got even tighter without Tomlinson, and then it just wasn't. And especially at Western, it just wasn't. And
like it seems like South Gallia, who boys we haven't really talked, girls we've talked about a little, but boys, I mean,
I don't
as of now the closest team to in the SOC2 to play against Northwest. I think it was
49-46 in
it was
overtime.
OT.
Yeah, and Tanner Bolin had 26 in the game, I believe. It might have been 24. Either way, it was a big game in SOC2 play, and I feel like that's going to be a really good one the next time when it's at Northwest. And I think it's going to be very tough to win at South Gallia.
Yeah,
like it's a long.
That's far from
it's
here.
it's a long trip, and
haven't played, and they're not used to playing them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, most of the other teams, like with Oak Hill and Sims Valley, they're just getting rearranged. But for South Gallia, you move, was it TVC Hawking?
yeah,
to the SOC2
who's pretty strong. Yeah. So I mean, you come from a strong conference, and you're moving into a pretty strong conference in the SOC2. But at the same time, you maybe play a little different style of play. Maybe and I don't know, I literally don't know anything about South Gallia's coach.
I know a little bit about.
Maybe they have a really good coach. I couldn't tell you because
I know Gallia and South Gallia support each other. Because I remember when we were down there for the Benton County
Oh, yeah.
game, they read off the South Gallia. Now I know South Gallia ended up losing, but they were winning when they announced the score, and everybody started going crazy.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny. But back to Clay, 35-25 over Oak Hill, their first win in 2 seasons. Clay now 1-7 on the year. Last year, they go 0-23. The year before, 1-22 last win for the Panthers. January 28th, 2022, 61-50 over Soundville East. So, hasn't quite been 2 years, but more or less.
Yeah.
2 years, or a year and 9 weeks.
Yeah.
So, it
was going back to early 2022.
Right. And Soundville East, Clay is at Green on Tuesday as well.
And yeah, boy,
we'll be there.
If I wake up, not that game. No, because we got the game at Minford on Tuesday. Right, yeah. No, Saturday at the Dave Young Classic at North Adams, they play West Union in the 10 a.m. slots.
Hey, that could be their second win.
Yeah.
Because I know West Union is a little
West
down.
Union has one win also, and it was against St. Patrick's out of Kentucky. Don't get into that rabbit hole because they've won a game. And then
team they've beat may have won a game,
and it's just but
until you get down to varsity opponent.
Their game was not close with St. Patrick's, so I watched that game last year. I covered it. It was a 3-point game. It was West Union's only win last year, so
over Clay.
Yeah. So we'll see who wakes up early enough to come out ready for that one. There's 8 games that day. Like yesterday was 6. It was a lot.
You start at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably an 8 p.m. game.
Yep.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It's over 12 hours.
Like
of basketball.
we're gonna be done at the Circleville Amanda game before that game tips off. So, so that'll be good. Congratulations to Clay. when the kids work hard, and I know the coaches work hard, and that's really good for the community to break through, and just here's to more wins coming up.
I feel like it's just tough, especially with like Loper leaving, and
you mentioned some other kids that had left.
Holbrook, and this was going back a few years. It was Holbrook, and then
Balestra.
Evan Balestra, who's over at St. Joe now. I feel like it's just tough for a lot of the Portsmouth schools when you have Clay, East, West, Portsmouth.
It's so many small schools in an area that doesn't have that many people.
Right. I feel like I don't know, if they just combine into one. Portsmouth. I feel like West is sort of they've kind of held their own recently in some sports. Like obviously, like boys soccer wasn't the greatest, but like football, basketball, they've seemed to be okay. But like East and Clay, I feel like even if just East and Clay came together, they'd be a little bit better. They both have some guys, but just on their own, maybe not.
It's a. I feel like the schools are all a good bit bigger back when consolidation was starting, and maybe some of them are consolidated as well already, because I think so. Clay is, and I'm sure we're going to hear the two areas, because I know I wish I could remember what it was, because I almost said Rushtown, but that's somewhere else. But
for who?
Portsmouth Clay, like their areas, like they have two little like almost township type areas, but I'll tell you what, Clay's still really good at softball. And there are some sports that it's really hard to win at a really small school. Like when you look at, if you go on to the OHSA website and you look at the divisional breakdowns, and especially in like boys and girls basketball, the SOC 3 have like all of the schools are in like the bottom 10% of the smallest division on their enrollment. So it's really hard to get consistent winning at those programs. So you have to have really good coaching. You have to have good youth programs to even get started in the right direction. So, it is very difficult to win for those places, but they really have a lot of pride, and, it's just, they're going to work hard for them. And that's why, like, I know, Glenwood had some kids from outside the general area. They made it to the Final Four. Yeah.
Ago.
And the worst part about when they made it to the Final Four is that was the COVID year.
Yeah.
So they didn't get to win at the Convo. They won at Southeastern, which was still really nice. And like they had a really good crowd because it was like near the end of it when they were pretty much just whatever.
Everybody come in.
Yeah. But man, they had such good community involvement on the way there. And
I feel like when you get smaller communities like that, that's where you find the proud ones.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you have everybody in the area just shows up to, wherever it is, Southeastern, or like I'm guessing Glenwood, or I'm not saying that. I'm guessing New Boston's gym isn't the biggest. So
one-sided.
So it's probably just absolutely loaded when they're good like that, or maybe even when they're not.
I like it too. But
I'm not a fan of the one-sided gyms. I think they're kind of funky.
I think it's mostly because I went to Flagey growing up and it was a one-sided gym, but
I don't know. It's okay.
So the smallest school in the state in boys, Irons and St. Joe, Bloomfield only has 18 boys. St. Joe has 15. You go up a little. Actually, you go up a little bit more than I thought. But East has 41. Man, like that's just not very many to choose from. No. And I'll tell you what, when I went to the East in Manchester game, they did their East Hall of Fame ceremony last year, and it was really packed in there too. Once again, a one-sided gym, and you could just tell the community pride there as well, which was really cool to see. Green 65 boys, like these aren't. There's just not a whole lot to choose from. South Gallia only has 75, so Portsmouth Clay 52 boys.
Clay's a little bigger.
Yeah,
not a whole lot,
but yeah, it's just you've got these really small schools that when they are able to put together, like Clay made a Elite Eight run a few years ago. And of course, I won the regional semifinal. I don't know if I've told you this. 101 to 99, I think was the final. Hit the over in that. That was Grove City Christian. We had. Were you on the team? I think it was when you were in 8th grade. We scrimmaged Grove City Christian, and it was like that same group, and they were really good. And it was like we kept a running scoreboard the entire game, and it ended up being close to that. Yeah, because Ford was on that team.
Oh yeah.
He didn't like the running up and down with that group. I love that kid.
All right, he's on a cruise right now.
Is he? Attaboy.
Yeah, I don't remember where, but
probably the Caribbean.
Something, I don't know, somewhere it's warm.
Probably somewhere with lots of free food. Like seriously, it's like I know people like will talk bad about cruises, but like you can literally go eat whenever you want. It's maybe not the healthiest, but you know, oh, you want ice cream? Just go get it. You want pizza at 4 a.m.? I think you can still do that. I don't know. I wasn't up that late this past when I went on. And like I went like 20 years without taking a cruise. You know, it was a mistake not going on a cruise for 20 years. Like, have you ever been on one? You need to. You would hate it. But there's all kinds of stuff to do, and there's comedians, and then you could have like there was one comedian that was very blue last year that he decided to be dirty just to be dirty, and it wasn't very funny, but the rest of them were really good.
All right. We'll move on. Some MSL action, probably the game of the week as we sort of got into at the top of the show. Circleville picking up their second league win of the season, 47-44 over the co-defending MSL champs in Fairfield Union, who is now 6-5, 3-3. Brock was there. Wouldn't totally advise reading back the tweet updates. I never actually told you what what the tweets went from in terms of like chronology and order. But just looking back on them now, it went from, and this is where it was, so is it 3 minutes in overtime?
Yeah, 4.
4. So in order, Falcons turn, I'm just going to read it. So these two are in order. Falcons turn the ball over. Slater Search hits 2 free throws to put Circleville ahead 38-35, 17 seconds left. Next update, Circleville calls timeout with 1:18 left in overtime, tied 40-40. I mean, how did it get to overtime?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But,
presented by McDonald's.
Yeah, there we go. We're all high, yeah. But whatever. It was a good game. I think the Circleville TV station was there, so if you know how to go back and watch that, I'm not totally sure how that works, but it seemed like it was not the highest scoring game. You go to double OT and combined whatever, it's a little bit over 90, 47-44. That would be a low score just in regulation, let alone double OT. So not a whole lot of offense, but Circleville prevails, now 7-3 on the season. Briley Kramer, 17 points. He led the game. Also dropped his 1,000th point, so congratulations to Briley for that. Riley Jenkins also with 11. Slater Search, 8 points. Didn't score his first 2 until those 2 free throws on Brock's tweet. So in the last, 8 minutes and 17 seconds, had 8 points. So came up big down the final stretch for the Tigers. They're at Liberty Union next Friday, so a bit of a break in between their games, and then same break for Fairfield Union as they're at Logan Elm next Friday, who beat Circleville 35-31, and also for Fairfield Union, Schmelzer with 13, Keegan Arnett with 12, and Caleb Redding with 11. But I mean, you look at Logan Elm, they're under 500, correct?
Yes.
If not extremely close to that. You might look at that as maybe, not that big of a game, but I mean, Logan Elm did beat Circleville 35-31, and another that one even lower scoring is only 66 combined points. So I'm interested to see the Logan Elm. Now we could come back next week and Fairfield Union won 70-40 or something, but I'm kind of, and it's at Logan Elm, which I mean for Circleville it wasn't an easy place to play. As I believe that game was at Logan Elm.
Yeah, it was the first win ever at the new gym for Logan Elm.
Oh, we got to get over there.
I'll tell you what. Okay. So when we beat them in the districts a couple years ago, I swear it was the last game there. And then they played 2 more seasons. It's like, what?
I liked that old gym.
I like the old
2
gym.
levels, sort of like Piketon a little
Yeah.
bit is what I got from it. But
Yeah, I like the old gym. I haven't heard anything about the new gym. Just
I doubt it can
I'm
get any
sure
worse, so.
it can't be bad. But this, when you mentioned the 47-44, this is just kind of like reminds me of a tournament game. Like, and Circleville, just by looking at numbers, seems like they're really locking in defensively, as giving up 5 points in the second half against Miami Trace, and pretty much 5 quarters against Fairfield Union, only giving up 44. So I mean, if your offense isn't going at maybe the level you want it to go, defense you never miss out on. So
defense all the time.
Yeah, defense all the time for sure. And it seems like Coach Carpenter's got his team moving in the right direction. I believe that's 4 straight wins for them.
Well, I'm not sure, but I was going to say 5-0 in the non-conference. Well, I guess what would that be? They're 5-0 in the non-conference, 2-3 in the MSL. So, in terms of league play, I think they're still sort of in the middle of the pack.
They're doing really well in the SVC. Just beat Zane Trace, Paint Valley, and Westfall.
They only got Unioda in the early days of February. That's at Unioda. We've kind of been looking at that game as one we might potentially be at. And
might be an SVC championship game if things go right for Unioda.
Yeah. But for Circleville, like I said, at Liberty next Friday. Fairfield Union at Logan Elm next Friday as well. So, and didn't Liberty Union play somebody? Or maybe
they might have beat Hamilton.
Was that?
That might have been who? Yeah, I think they beat Hamilton Township.
Because that one was
who. If you look at our scoreboard page, has a hilarious looking score.
44 to
no, it's Taze Valley 64, Hamilton 5. They just didn't put the 7 on there. It was 57. I was looking at it yesterday. I was like, I feel like that's not right.
5 points and a half, okay. 5 points in 4 quarters.
Yeah.
Something might be a little wrong there. But, Circleville have been impressive to start. Like I said, 5-0 in the non-league, 2-3 in the MSL. So they still got some ground to make up in terms of mid-state league play. And then, John, pretty busy day for you on Saturday down at the Chad Hodson Classic. We talked a little bit about it at the top of the show, but I think the Paint Valley game was the first game, so what a way to get your day started with. I mean, I know it wasn't technically a buzzer beater. It looked like it went in, and there may have been a few seconds left, but a big shot by Cody Bell to put the Mustangs over Paint Valley.
Yeah, and it was a weird game because it looked like
low score.
Yeah, it looked like Paint Valley was going to pull away, and then just did not score after a while. It was Carson Free had 23 points for Paint Valley. Final score was 38-35. Nobody else had more than 3 for Paint Valley in the game. They have to find a second scorer at some point. Free's averaging over 17 points a game, and he played really well. But when you've got just the one guy able to make shots, it really makes things difficult, even if you're playing really good defense. And there was a play late in the game. I mentioned something about it on X, where it was Cody Bell and Braylon Robertson got kind of tangled up. I think it was like I think Bray made a pass and his arm came through and looked like it might have pulled Bell's shoulder out because he was just holding it. He had to come out of the game, and with how strong Bray Robertson is, it wouldn't surprise me. And I said, if he doesn't make it back, it's could be a big loss. He comes back in, hits a corner 3 to give them 35-33 lead late.
So he had their last 6 points.
Yeah, and then Paint Valley got a steal and ended up getting a layup. Oh my gosh, now I'm trying to remember who it was exactly. Jeremy Kane. Jeremy Kane got a steal and a layup with a little over 30 seconds left. Lynchburg was able to run the clock down, and it's on my X account with the shot with
J. Bruce SVC.
Yeah, I hate the X thing, and I hate the fact that I'm not Coconut Wall Papa anymore. Yeah. But RIP. But yeah, Cody Bell, and it was not a shallow 3. That was an NBA 3, and they kind of ran a three-man weave action a little bit. He gets it a little bit close to the top of the key, takes a step back, and just buries a 3 with about 2 seconds left. And Paint Valley either didn't have a timeout or just
didn't call it.
Or I don't even know if the officials looked over there. They didn't get the timeout, and I don't know if it matters at that point because, Lynchburg gets their 5th win of the season. They move to 5-6. Paint Valley drops to 1-8, I believe. That's bad. I'm on the SVC website, that I run.
Something to that effect.
Yeah, sort of. 1-8 for Paint Valley. So, tough loss for them. I feel like, a lot of guys coming back next year, they just got to up the intensity a little bit. Now, it was also an 11 a.m. start on a snowy day, but anytime you get a chance to win, I felt like it wasn't until late that they really seemed to really get locked in defensively on that. And at that point, Lynchburg had, was feeling pretty good about themselves. But also a big thing in that game, Lynchburg was, Denver Clinton didn't play for them as he appeared to be a healthy scratch. He's averaging 17 points a game. So I don't know if something happened the night before to where he was being held out, but like he warmed up and he was in full uniform, but they never went to him. Now, I will say, looking down at him throughout the game, he's clapping and giving high fives to his teammates. So, hopefully it's just a one game thing, but, and maybe he twisted something in warmups. I don't know, but, really good win for Lynchburg to do it without their top scorer. But, Austin Bell also had 10 points a game. Cody Bell had 18 in the win. So it was a good game overall. One game that I'm not going to really talk about, but Clinton Massey beat White Oak, and they were,
it's a pretty big win.
Yeah, I believe it was 87-59.
Yeah.
They were 17 of 33 from 3.
God.
Like, it was unbelievable. They had a Jerry Trout, which is a great high school boys kid's name, hit 10 threes for Clinton Massey in the win. It was, dude, was unreal. And it was all in the first half. It was all in the right corner. Second half, he switched it a little bit, but yeah, his I think it was his 9th. He definitely got fouled on, but
I'd probably be fouling somebody too. If
no, it was like they were just trying to get in him at that point because it wasn't really much they could do. But like I mentioned earlier, Weston Blair being out for, White Oak's going to really hurt them offensively. But they've got some really good young talent. White Oak does. So I think it's just a thing you just got to just keep working. It's not a good matchup for them, which I'll talk about a little bit later also in the Dave Young Classic. But, so that was probably the ugliest game of the day. Next, McClain 41, Athens 39. McClain gets their 2nd win of the season. The Tigers are actually up 14 at one point in the second half, but the Bulldogs were able to get it down, tied it twice in the fourth quarter. Leo Martin for Athens was all over the court. I wish I would have kept track of steals in the game because I feel like he probably had 5 or 6 and was just doing all kinds of little things for them. He had 13 points, 5 rebounds. I think he only scored 2 in the first half, so really did a whole lot of little things for them to help bring them back in the game. But one thing for Athens was I think they got so much into aggressive defensively that McClain didn't have to make a shot after Athens tied it because they fouled him. So the first time, Michael Noska Jr. hit 2 free throws that put them up by 2. Athens comes down and ties it. And then Seth Weller, who ended up going 7 for 8 from the line, made a pair of free throws, and that was the difference. They were fouled late. One of their forwards went 0 for 2 at the line, and Athens got a last-ditch shot off, but it was off target. But overall, this is a good win for McClain the night after going to... I was
going to say, what time did this game start?
This was...
The 3:30 game?
1:30, I think.
So, like, a 1:30 game following a double OT.
Yeah.
Now, and they took Vinton County to the brink, who, just had the loss to Webster, and then who did they lost to Chillicothe before that? So nearly 3. I believe it would have been 3 consecutive losses for Vinton County, but a double OT game the night before you lose to Vinton County at home.
A heartbreaker because they were up big too because they got really hot.
It was like 34-17 or something at halftime, and I mean, it's not easy to drive to Fairfield a night after a double OT loss.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and then, kind of credit to McClain in that game against Vinton County because, we were sitting there kind of watching. It was like, well, if Vinton County takes the lead, it's going to be over. And it wasn't. McClain just kept battling, eventually fell, but I think it ended up being a 5-point game, but it was because Vinton County made a layup with no time left. And so really it was a really tight game throughout. And then, and this was a game where they had a big lead and almost gave it away and were able to hold on. But yeah, Coach Noska, you can tell, one of the Athens parents was like, well, he's getting on him and warm-ups, but that same parent was complaining literally the entire game, like before it even started. But was talking about how hard of a warm-up McClain had. But I'll tell you what, watching them on film in game 1 to watching them in person in game 11, I can tell you right now they are much better. And maybe obviously you got to tighten some things up down the stretch there to put wins away, but they are, if they stick with it, they're going to be in good shape coming up, because I know they start at least 2 juniors and a freshman. So I mean, it's a team that you just got to build.
Right.
They made it to the regionals 2 years ago, but they had a big drop off last year, and then it's a team that
new coach,
new
players.
a third new coach in 3 years. It's just, you got to eventually the program, you got to build it back up, like Waverly, where they made it to state 2 years ago. They drop off last year, have a bad year, third coach in 3 years. Well, you got to build like baby steps, but they're off to a faster start. Yeah. But yeah, that was a very interesting game. I was happy to see McClain get the win. The next game,
nightcap.
Well, we had the Hillsboro Adena game in there, which was 80-57. It was kind of funny because I was around Hillsboro people and they were, complaining about some stuff throughout. Kind of like, it's just what parents do, I guess. Now, it's really hard to be a coach right now. Just listening to like what some of these kids are probably hearing at home, but it was funny because right at the end of the game, they're like, man, that was a butt kicking, like. That's how impressive Adena was in that game. It was just, shout out to the Warriors again for a really impressive game. But nightcap was the 45-42 win for Fairfield over Western. Western led 21-16 at the half. They had 4 different players make threes in the first half, and that was without Cam James scoring at all.
Let me try to guess who they were. 4 players make. Lytle was one.
Yes, he made the first.
Haggy was one.
Yes.
Clay had to be one.
Nope.
Oh, gosh, these other 2. And James wasn't one?
Nope.
I don't even remember any other players.
So,
I don't remember any other Western players.
The number 2, the really small one. Like, this is bad.
Oh my gosh. It's something with a J, I feel. James?
No.
That we had Western way too long ago for
that was early. Let's see if I can find. I doubt their stuff's on here.
They might have a roster,
but it could have 70 players on it.
Was that? Athens?
Athens had 70 players on their Max Preps roster, and then I took a picture of the bench, and they had 5 kids on the bench, and it was fun looking at that.
I feel it was Jet something.
Jet Jackson. Oh, they do have stats.
Well, that's yeah.
So that means they probably updated their roster.
Jet Jones?
No, that's a good name. No, Jet Jackson was a TV show. The famous Jet Jackson.
Have you all got that pulled up yet?
Dude, Tyler Kearns. The internet's horrible.
It works fine for me.
Yeah, because your computer is probably not a Chromebook that's total garbage.
It's not a Chromebook.
And Foster Davis also.
I remember that name. That's 55.
55, yeah. Foster Davis had 7 points in the game. He had a good game. But like I said, like Western, they're a team that they're going to be a bad seed. You don't want to play them.
Yeah.
And especially when, Coach Williams and his staff have time to game plan.
Playing Drew Haggy and Cam James in a sectional final would not be, or even a sectional semifinal would not be my
let me see. What do they have Tyler Kearns listed? They have listed at 5'5", 130. That dude plays so hard. And
Kinda, I mean, when you don't have a size advantage, you kind of have to.
Yeah,
you don't have a choice.
They play hard. They get after loose balls. They're going to play hard defense. Maybe you're going to outsize them. You can probably out rebound them based off size and everything. But man, they're going to fight you to the end. And don't let the 3-8 record make you think anything different.
All right, some games coming up this week. Some big ones. We'll talk about our 2 live streams. Then another classic coming up this week in the Shack, but there are some non-Shack teams playing in it as well. So Tuesday night, South Webster at Minford, 9-1 on 9-1. Minford's only lost to New Albany. South Webster falling for the first time this season at home against Wheelersburg. Is that on Saturday or was it on Friday? Friday night. But what was it? It was 69-59. So a pretty convincing win for the Pirates.
Really
we didn't
good win.
talk about that one specifically as we kind of figured we'd mention it here, but a big win for Wheelersburg. South Webster falls to 9-1 heading into Tuesday's match. You know, a couple weeks ago, 5 days ago, I probably would have said Webster and Minford, here are your top 2 SOC2 teams. But, I mean, Wheelersburg is kind of crawling up. And I think the Wheelersburg at Minford matchup is in February. They play out in Wheelersburg before that, so that should be an interesting one to check out. But a big boys game coming up on Tuesday between the Jeeps and Falcons.
You did predict that.
I did.
That they would lose.
Go back and watch. Go back
episode 30. Yeah.
Go back and watch episode 30. I said, you have Minford on Tuesday. You got Vinton County and Wheelersburg coming up before that. They were losing to Vinton County at halftime. I thought that might be the one they lost, but they ended up pulling out the win against Vinton County, and then they dropped to Wheelersburg on Friday. So I'm taking that as a win.
Yes.
For me.
Yeah. So for South Webster, 9-1, and really those 2 games are the first time they've really, I guess, a little bit in the Fairland game where they faced some adversity, but for the most part, in those first 7-8 games, they were ahead by a good bit in each one. And
I feel like the Raceland game kind of got close at the end.
Yeah.
And it was like 18 and
right.
at the end. That was kind of weird. But.
Yeah, so I think this is a matchup that we, obviously we had circled, and Montgomery, who is going to slow down Montgomery, but also the Kaiser and Roberts matchup should be really fun.
That's the one I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, and is Coach Pearson going to be able to be back on the sideline? He wasn't there on Friday in that game against Wheelersburg, and hopefully he's back and healthy and everything for the Jeeps. If not, I think they have a good staff over there anyway, so they're in decent shape. But that makes things just a little bit tougher. And you go to Minford, who's well coached, has a nice staff as well, and it's I think Jackson Shoemaker is going to be a tough matchup. Like with Jack Timothy inside, can Summer get going on the outside for South Webster? Webster's going to have to make some shots, I think. For Minford, they've got the 3-headed monster, offensively, but they also, Troy Rhodes and Jeffrey Pika can score at times.
How deep does Webster go on the bench? 6, 7?
So I've seen them go 8, but the Bernard kid hasn't played a lot when I've
7,
seen.
probably.
Yeah. And really, when they played Fairland, it was really 6 because Owen Malt was out, but I think he's back now.
So it's pretty much 6 deep for Minford, 7-ish, 6 or 7, maybe 8 for Webster. So those are pretty similar in terms of how many players they use.
Yeah, I think if you put the Bernard kid in, he can do some things. I just don't think they're as comfortable with him in the varsity yet because he hasn't played big minutes yet. But I think he's a kid that at the end of the year you could see playing big time minutes for them. But overall, it's really Timothy comes off the bench for them, and if Malt's back, then the Campbell kid also would be another one that would come off the bench. But for the most part, it's.
I don't think there's a lot to dissect here. I think this is man on man. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of analytics that
Yeah.
really go into this matchup. I think
It's
you have what you have, and we're going to find
Yeah,
out what happens on Tuesday.
I watched it twice last year, and neither one was close. I feel like this is a different South Webster team, but when you lose at home to Wheelersburg, this is almost a prove it game. Like
Yeah.
you want to be a state contender, you got to win games like this on the road. You got to maybe you don't win games, but you got to really compete.
Yeah.
You can't
Lose by 10.
You can't lose by 10 at home to a team that you have a whole lot of size advantage on. So shout out to Wheelersburg.
That's what surprised me is we were kind of dogging on Wheelersburg. Like, man, they get big guys. They play against big guys. They're in trouble. DeAndre Berry and Portsmouth took them down by 17 or 18? Eli Roberts, Summer, and all those guys. You take them down by 10 on the road. I mean, I think we kind of got to get rid of that assumption that
like with Wheelersburg,
size.
you got Lattimore and Rucker in the backcourt. Like that's dynamic. In that game, Lattimore had 3 offensive fouls, and they still the Rucker kid who fouled out with 5 minutes left had 26 points. Landon McGraw, like he's a dog, like just yeah, and they play a bunch of sophomores. They're young. They're talented. They play hard. I love their coach. Like, when I watched them that first half against Harvest Prep, I was like, man, Coach Prater's nuts. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I'd want to play for this guy because he seemed like he was just like very, very intense at every second. And then like, kid would make a big play and like the way he'd react to them, I'm like, okay, I would play for this guy anytime. And then like he did a couple more things and like a couple of adjustments. I'm like, I'd run through a wall for this dude. Yeah. And I mean, he's in his second year there, and I feel like Wheelersburg is going to win for a long time with him there. I think he's one of the many really good young coaches we have in our area. So them winning at Webster didn't fully surprise me, maybe by the score it did.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's and especially after they lost to Jackson, maybe that's kind of where it ends up. Like I felt like they were going to be able to win at Jackson, but they ended up losing that game. And but Jackson, I think it's 6 straight games they've won.
Something
and
like
yeah, so I mean, we got to. I'm not going to say the Flowers thing. Maybe we got to give them a little more praise. They win a couple more this week, and we'll go into depth on them next week.
And then coming up a little bit later on in the week, we'll be back down in Portsmouth. Hopefully, we're not totally sure yet, but either way, the 6-2 Trojans hosting the 5-4 South Point Pointers.
We need to bring the dogs in.
And we did have them in earlier, but
because aren't they kind of pointers?
No, they are. They are pointers. That's
It's literally
So right down. We can't see it now.
Yeah, we need to bring them in. Take them to the game, as live mascots for South Point.
Yeah.
But South Point at Portsmouth. Portsmouth's got to get two straight losses. They got to figure some things out. But man, you got Coach Lice that does a really good job there, and we've talked about DeAndre Berry, and Loper. They've got some nice pieces. Donovan Breach. They've got some nice pieces that can really they can win some games. But man, they got to really focus in defensively because Caleb Lovely can get going in a hurry. Carter Smith is really tough. Like I mentioned, Zathan Haney is a kid that seems like he's getting things going for them. And, I think this has a chance to be a really fun matchup. Should be high scoring. It should be, maybe some crazy behind the back passes on the baseline.
Across the entire baseline.
But
oh man.
Yeah, it has the opportunity to be a really fun game, and I think for Portsmouth it's once again this is kind of a prove it game. You want to get back to the district level. You want to have a chance to win the OVC. You got to win games like this against really good teams at home. And for South Point, 5-4, they got to start
defend the ground.
Yeah, they got to stack some wins coming up. So I think this should be a fun matchup. Hopefully we can get down there and live stream it. If not, somebody will have some sort of updates.
Yeah, somebody.
Yeah.
And then coming up the next night, a 7-game slate down at North Adams. John, I believe you were down there last year.
I was down there for
this one.
All of them. And it's actually 8 games because there's a girls game in there that
Oh.
I'll throw a mention in there too. But yeah, Dave Young Classic at North Adams, once again, really well ran. A tribute to the late great Coach Young that took North Adams to the state tournament in 1996. Pretty much everyone but the officials would say that they should have been in the state finals. I've told you about that, right? Yeah, lost well after the buzzer. It starts off at 10 a.m. when Portsmouth-Clay takes on West Union. And this is one thing I really like. Like that's a matchup that should probably be the matchup, because if those two teams are going to be playing in it, they should probably be playing each other because it gives them each a chance to get a win. Next is Ripley versus Sims Valley. I think Sims Valley is probably favored in that, but that'll give me a chance to see two teams that normally don't see. Next is, I have an asterisk by this.
What?
An asterisk.
Asterisk?
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 Yeah.
God, or an asterisk?
Whatever.
God.
Yeah, I have that. But you knew what I was saying. Actually, you might not have, because you looked at me like 4 times. South Point against White Oak. I'm going to look directly at the camera here.
Okay.
White Oak, what did you do? Every time they play in one of these, they get the worst matchup possible. So last year, they had to play South Point, who was unreal. White Oak was all right. That wasn't a real match, like not a super competitive matchup. Last year at the Chad Hodson Classic, they had to play with Lucasville Valley. Not a good matchup. Chad Hodson Classic yesterday, they played Clinton Massey. This time they play South Point. Like, they're not going to, like, no offense, not going to win these games. And
I really hope White Oak wins.
oh, I would love it. But I'm just saying, like, these aren't favorable matchups. These are really tough matchups for White Oak for being a D4, playing some of these schools. And, South Point's not huge, but still, this is not a great matchup. Well, you have an Elite 8 team playing a team that graduated 4 starters. And I really like Xander Rhodes for White Oak. Sawyer Blair, who's a sophomore, his brother's out, but Sawyer Blair has some nice skill as well. And like I mentioned, I think White Oak is probably a year away from being pretty darn good. But right now, this isn't a great matchup for them. Then 2:30, I think this one could be really fun. Western versus Manchester. I think that's probably gonna be the last game I'll see, because I think I can get up to Circleville. It's only an hour and 25 minutes, which is funny because it's like an hour and 10 minutes from my house there. Circleville, not 15 minutes away, but the old highway. But that one should be a fun matchup. I think Manchester's guards and Western's guards should be a pretty even matchup. I think it's a game that neither team has a ton of size, so it could be really fast and up-tempo. Eastern Brown plays Blanchester at 4. Peebles against Georgetown at 5:30. At 7, North Adams versus Chesapeake girls. That's going to be... And it kind of happened last year, too, where North Adams girls played, I think it was Georgetown, and the boys played Georgetown. And it just so happened that the boys' game was going to be much better than the girls' game was. And I think this is the same thing, because the main event is North Adams against Chesapeake. And I feel like that's going to be a very fast up and down game, so that should be good. I'm guessing Good Guys radio/TV is going to be there again. They were there all day at the Chad Hodson Classic, so if you want to go back and watch those,
Man,
yeah,
those guys.
And it was the same guys.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm over here telling you, look, I can't do 3 straight games, and these guys are doing like
6.
5, 6, 7.
like, tag someone in, get a quick sub.
I mean, if we did an 8-game, 7-game day, we'd have to have probably 3 play-by-play guys there and just alternate, because, man,
But
that'd be
I
tough.
think they're grizzled. They're old pros. They're grizzled vets. So we're not grizzled vets yet. I'm just old. You're still a youngin'. But yeah, so it should be a good day over at the Dave Young Classic. 1 ticket gets you into all the games. And I believe it raised a good bit of money last year for scholarships. And it's a really cool scholarship stuff because it works with students with developmental disabilities down in Adams County. So it helps them run events down there. So, like the Chad Hodson Classic goes towards scholarships for kids at Fairfield and helps out some other programs in that area. So these classics are there to raise money for great causes, and also has some really good basketball at the same time. So if you get a chance, if you don't have anything going on Saturday, go out to North Adams, and while you're there, stream Circleville and Amanda on Southern Ohio Sports Authority, presented by Ohio Health,
There we go.
on YouTube.
Yeah, should be one of the better girls games we have this year, and we'll talk about that game coming up now as we're finally going to the girls' side about an hour into the show, but better
Late
than
pregnant.
never, I guess. Or yeah. All right, so we'll talk some individual performances, although this is more of just one big team performance for the Athens Bulldogs, as Asa Halcombe leads the way, 21 points in their win over Vinton County, averaging 13.7 points on the season.
Yeah, and she stats the stuffs the stat sheet.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah, 13.7 points a game, as you mentioned, 7.7 rebounds, 4 assists per game, 4.7 steals. They're 9-3 on the year. We saw them last year against Jackson. They were very young last year and still very young. She's the only junior on the team. It's no seniors, only junior. The rest are freshmen, sophomores.
So the one girl graduated.
Yeah. Who had a huge game.
Well,
Oh, my gosh.
it's like Zuber.
Yeah.
And you made some stupid. It's like she's not exuberant to be at the free throw line because her free throw percentage was like sub 50 or something.
I think it was like sub 20.
It was pretty bad, and you were like, she's not very exuberant to be at the free throw
And then
line.
she made all her free throws in the game.
Because that was the last game I did before I tapped out for about a week.
Yeah, you died after that. You were so sick.
Oh, it was pretty bad.
Yeah. Just a second, I'm gonna have to pull this up. But yeah, so some other players that stand out for them are Quinn Banks, also averages 13.7 points a game. She's made 28 threes, shooting 36% from the 3-point range. Ella Chapman, a sophomore, also with Quinn Banks, a sophomore, 11.2 points a game. So it's a team. They lost to Minford. They beat Minford, and they lost to
Lost to Uniota, didn't they?
Athens. No, they lost to Circleville.
Oh, Circleville.
Yeah, but they're a good team overall. So I mean, they're a team that, with how young they are.
Oh, Emily Zuber.
Yeah, my computer's so slow, dude.
I don't know why.
I'm telling you, it's because it's a terrible computer. I just need I have a new MacBook.
Why don't you use it?
Because I have 2 classes left.
Oh.
And so I just want to get, I'm done. I'm just going to go back to my file. But I got 2 classes left and I graduate, and I think I'm going to break this thing and just get rid of it. Yeah.
Does it not go all the way around like this?
Nope. This is as far as it goes. It's got some cat chew marks because my cat tries to chew on it. It's got stickers. I put the Buckeye helmet on upside down. But I got
What a silly guy.
I got the Chillicothe sticker. Chillicothe
We have
flag.
an ugly flag, man. That's disgusting.
But we have a flag.
I'd rather just not have
You
one.
barely live in Chillicothe. I barely
is
do
true.
too. I actually live just as much in Chillicothe as you do. So, unless they decide to make us more into the city again, we want to add more people. Well, I can't vote for mayor, so. But yeah, so the Bulldogs. I like Chillicothe's mayor. This is not an endorsement.
I feel like he's been the mayor for ever.
Yeah,
I couldn't tell you what the last one is.
He's been the mayor since the downtown was horrible, and now you
a lot of stuff.
Now you can walk downtown. You could. One of my buddies got into the Hall of Fame at Uniota probably 6 years ago, and we were walking downtown afterwards, and they're like, "Do you guys remember when we couldn't do this?" We're like, yeah, last year, and now it's pretty nice. So losses for Athens are Warren, Marietta, Circleville. So I mean, they've lost some really good teams. Yeah. I think Marietta still only has the 1 loss. Warren just beat a good Wheelersburg team yesterday. So, and Circleville's still unbeaten, but they beat Bloom Carroll, beat Lancaster. Some good wins in there as well. So And then like 54-35 over Minford. Pretty good win for.
Who just took down Jackson, who was undefeated at the time.
Yeah, so for Athens, they've got Wellston coming up this week, and then they're at Belpre on Saturday, who's actually pretty good. But I think those are both games they should win. I liked what I saw out of Wellston. They're huge. Like, I don't know if I told you, I think they have like 3 6-footers on their team. But they only played 6 kids, so, I mean, they are not the most mobile defensively, so that's probably why they don't have a great record, but I liked what I saw out of them. They got River Valley, who's having a better season, but then Nelsonville, man, they may not lose again. Athens, yeah. The game against Nelsonville is going to be tough just because, Lavy's is,
You just can't get
Levy.
it right.
Is it Levy?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Levy's outstanding.
Like 0 for 3 now.
And I'm counting that as a half. That's a foul tip. That's a foul tip.
All right, some game some game reviews from the past week. Wheelersburg, a big win over South Webster, maybe a little bit larger of a spread than, and we didn't know anything about Wheelersburg going in.
Yeah, their schedule was atrocious. So
and the combined record of their wins now, I think still under 500, but
it's much
lot
better
than it was.
Well,
It's the first win over a team that's over 500.
It doubled. They went from 7 wins combined in their first 4 wins to 15. Yeah. So, with Wheelersburg, we didn't know because the SOC has crossover games where you're playing from different divisions, and their crossover games with the SOC 2 were 3 of the worst teams in SOC 2.
It's not like they were playing South Gallia.
They did play Sims Valley, but they lost to Sims Valley. So.
Wheelersburg lost to Sims Valley?
So that's probably the second best team they played, the second best team in the SOC2, and they lose that game. So I'm like, well, what did they have? They find out that was the day after they lost to Ashland Blazers. So, maybe they're a little worn down. It just could be weird scheduling. But for Wheelersburg, they come out, they never trailed in the game. They were up, I believe it was 10-2 early. I know it was at least 8-0 to start, and it was just a really impressive performance for Wheelersburg. They were at some benefit in my story that has not been posted, and I'm assuming will not get posted, that I wrote. Bella Claxton came into the game averaging 14 points a game for South Webster. She did foul out, but she only played about 5 minutes of game time. Her third and fourth fouls were not fouls. I can't tell you about the first, second, or fifth. The fifth one, I was blocked by people, so I really couldn't see. But the first one, I didn't even think it was her. I thought it was Addie Claxton that fouled on the play. But nobody argued. But her third one, how you tell people to be straight up. Someone just ran into her. There was literally no foul on the play, and because she didn't go down, so it's not a charge. It's just play on. Fourth one was the exact same thing, and. It was she just couldn't stay on the court. So she didn't score in the game. So that was a big advantage for Wheelersburg. But really the advantage was Mia Vastine. And
is it Vastine or Vastine?
I think it's Vastine.
You should know.
I think it's Vastine.
Such a silly little guy.
I know. But she had 9 points, 8 assists, 5 steals, 5 rebounds in the game. And just completely ran the game. In the third quarter, Webster made a run. They got it down to a 2-point game, and it was by going zone. So Wheelersburg was settling a little too much outside. I don't know if it was Mia or Coach Spradlin was one of the two was you go get inside the zone. She gets inside the zone. So the only points they scored in the third quarter was she got inside the zone, found Peyton May, and that was a 3-point play where Claxton got her fourth foul. So. That was the only points of the quarter because May goes and makes the free throw after that. In the fourth quarter, to start the fourth quarter, I'm just going to go with Mia. Mia cuts inside, finds May inside, she scores to make it a 4-point game. Next possession, Mia drives in, kicks outside, Jalen Prather knocks down a 3. They only made 3-pointer of the game in the game. So neither team shot the ball very well, but it was really good defense. and very physical play overall. But Prather ended up with 17 points in the game. May with 15 points, 9 rebounds. Really, it was only the 3 that scored for them, but overall, I was impressed with what Wheelersburg brought. They won the fourth quarter 17-2, and
so it's 28 or 20
26-24.
26-24 going into the
and
so it's pretty tight the whole time.
Skylar Zimmerman, averages right around 19 points a game, was held to 12 in the game, so they did a good job. When you're facing 43 points or 33 points a game and you hold them to 12. I mean, that's really good defense. And, they used a variety of players. Miley Gleam came off the bench and did a good job on Zimmerman, despite being kind of undersized against her. And you remember Kiera Kennard, I would have thought it was probably her sister, because it's the same size and plays with the same intensity and everything. So, I really like this Wheelersburg team. I know they lost a good Warren team on Saturday, but I don't think they have a senior. They're really young. So,
well, and this now sets up some interesting matchups with Minford, with West.
And so then at South Webster is going to be tight too.
I think Waverly's girls has been okay.
Yeah,
I think they
played
lost
West.
Gallia.
They played West tight the other day, and
West also played Piketon kind of tight, which was maybe not. Piketon covered the spread. I'll say
yes,
that.
Piketon covered the spread. And the thing with Piketon, Abigail Johnson tore ACL, so they're
really?
So they're playing without her.
Man, that's really crazy.
Yeah, so they're 5-8 at this point, and they're very young. So
I feel they're kind of similar to Western and boys, where it's yeah, they're not doing great, but you still don't want to play them.
Yeah,
I feel they have some people that if they get going, it's.
On Saturday, they beat Paint Valley, and Layla Kelly had 21 in the game. So, I mean, when you have a point guard that can get going and that can shoot the ball, that makes it a dangerous team. So they would be much more dangerous if you had Johnson, because she was averaging over 10 points a game.
Oh, and she was she's a senior too.
Only a junior.
Oh, she's a junior?
Yeah, so they'll have her back next year. But they have Allie Taylor, Lainey Brown. Those are 2 seniors for them that they will miss. But, Jalen Forbes is a player that gives them good minutes. I think Reese Shanks had a good game for them the other day. So they're, that Piketon team, maybe they're coming on a little bit. Maybe what we saw when they played Adena was, not exactly what they are. That's a bad night.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think that Adena team has made a lot of teams have bad nights.
Yeah.
But for South Webster, they dropped to 8-3 with that loss. For them, I think everything's still in front of them. What they want to do is just, it's tough to win on the road, especially in SOC 3 play. There's no love lost between the 2 programs, and I think they're both well-coached programs, so I think that should be a fun second game the next time they play. But I think South Webster still, has the talent to match up with some of the other teams that SOC 3 play, so I think it'll be an interesting season for them.
On our second game review for today's episode, North Adams and Eastern Brown, they meet up for the second time this season. The first time around, the Green Devils took it 46-17, so you'd figure maybe something similar to that. Not at all, as North Adams still does win, but it's 54-46. Only an 8-point win this time, not quite like their 29-point victory the first time, so... and in the game, Kinley Jones, 15 points. Carly Kennedy with 11. Caitlin Borger with 10. North Adams now 8-3, 6-2 in the Shack losses. I know they lost to... actually, I think that may have counted the Lynchburg second. On Max Preps, I think it may have counted the second Peebles loss as a league game, potentially.
For which one?
For North Adams.
Oh.
They played them 3 times.
They should only have one league loss.
So I think they're 8-3, 6-1
yeah.
in the Shacks. I just read that off of Max Preps. They're at Ripley on Monday. Not sure if this is going to air Monday or Tuesday.
On the Shack website, they're listed at 5-1 still.
5-1, but it should be 6 and... Oh, no, they played somebody else twice, too.
Like Manchester.
Yeah, so they're 5-1. It's... Max Preps doesn't really understand.
Well, because it just sees that you played these league teams. Yeah. And unless you go through and are very specific... I still have to go back and fix like Uniota's, like they didn't play
at South Point.
Yeah, they didn't play South
Or
Point
at
at home.
home.
It was a neutral site game. So yeah.
And then for Eastern Brown, they're only 5-6, but I mean North Adams a team atop of the shack. I think this shows you can't overlook Eastern Brown, and maybe we should keep an eye on some of those games with Eastern Brown and Lynchburg, or I know Eastern Brown and Peebles would only play. Well, no, they would play twice, I believe, as they're both in the same. They're both on the same side.
Yes.
But, I think we can kind of look at some of those games a little tighter now that we've seen Eastern Brown play North Adams a bit tighter than we may have expected. As Clara Martin had 16, Emily Belmont had 14, and they do have Lynchburg on Monday night. So I think we can kind of look at that game and see how ETN. I just drew a blank on the other two names.
Addison West, Jade Massey.
Yeah, we can see how those three sort of fare against an Eastern Brown team that, although they lost, like may have been one of their more impressive performances of the season.
Yeah, and speaking of impressive performances, this kind of ties in. Chad Hodson Classic was Fairfield, played a good Wilmington team, and ended up being a 9-point game, but that game was closer than it seemed, and Eastern plays at Fairfield on Thursday, so that could be a interesting game to look at.
Probably be pretty tight.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good game. And
I think Fairfield's like 3-8. Eastern Brown, as I said, now 5-6. So
yeah, but I think that's a Fairfield team that maybe is
probably isn't 3-8.
Yeah, probably isn't and they're a team that you expected to have Maya Hamilton, and she goes. Before the season starts, she ends up going up to Uniota. So you lose, someone that you expect to be a really good scorer for them. But then Faith Donnelly has to take on that number one role, and she's averaging, I think, still around 15 points a game for them on the season. And the thing just went off. So Faith Donnelly averaging over 14 points a game. I saw her have 17 against that good Wilmington team. And, Cassie Miller running the point for them, a junior, she had 10 for them and can really shoot the ball. So, I mean, that's, they have losses. Like, their losses are to, Adena, Peebles, White Oak, Lynchburg, McClain. The Ripley one, I think, kind of, Ripley and Fayetteville are maybe the ones that, are, kind of iffy on the loss that we thought maybe they would win coming into it. But I think that's a, Fairfield team that, are figuring some things out. And I liked what I saw out of them on Saturday.
All right, then some game previews coming up this week. We'll first talk about one of the SOC 3 matchups that could define who ends up winning that side. Is right now, I think there's at least 3, maybe 4 teams. I mean, you have Webster, Wheelersburg, West, and Minford that all seem to kind of have a hand in. I think Wheelersburg sort of took that first step with the win over Webster, but I think all, whatever that would be, like, I can't do math. However many matchups between all 4 of those teams, would it be 16?
12.
12?
I think.
2, I don't know. Something. Anytime any of those 4 teams match
Don't worry about math.
Anytime
we need straight numbers.
Anytime any of those teams match up this year, I think it's definitely worth watching, and I think this is one of them, especially with Minford. I know not coming off the win over Jackson, but with that sort of in the rearview mirror a little bit. They get West, who isn't down, but they are down probably from last year in terms because they lost a lot, but you still have Emma Sayre coming back, and you have some players that maybe didn't have big roles, but I mean they have increased roles.
Like Kate Rollins.
Right, some players like that had smaller roles last year, increased roles this year. They are used to winning for West. Is they made it to the regional final last year against Wheelersburg, and I think that game at West is it's late. I think it's in February, but I think they match up before that at Wheelersburg.
And really, they're McKenna Walker 3 from getting to state. Right. So, I mean, she makes a big 3 in the last minute and a half, and then Wheelersburg's able to put it away at the line in that game. And, so for West, coming off really arguably their best season ever, and, they still are winning games. And, maybe the games are a little tighter this year than they were last year. But when you have that point guard, like we mentioned a little bit, like Larkin Friend on the boys' side with Emma Sayre, you have the point guard that can do a little bit of everything. You've got a chance. And when you've got a winner like that, any time you're going to be in a game. And I think this is a very interesting game. I believe I'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
I know that's
will be there.
one of our few days off this week.
Yeah. So
we're going Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. So
yeah, you're taking the day off.
I am taking the day off.
Yeah. Well, because you got class. Yeah. But I mean, I technically started my class too. Yeah, boy. Hey, 2 to go. Get a master's, bud. Don't know if I'll use it, but if anyone wants to hire me,
I'm open.
Yeah, I'm open to it. But here in about 12 weeks. I guess 11 now. But yeah, so Thursday, West at Minford should be a fun matchup. I think they're 2 well-coached programs. Hopefully I can get there early enough to get my back against something because it's tired right now.
And I will, obviously last year they had Howell and McDermott, but, now for West, is there anybody that matches up with Lindsey Williams, who's listed at 6'4", and is probably every bit of that? I don't know if West had, and I will see them later in the season, but haven't seen them yet, so I don't know if they have, and that could go back to, matchups, can West beat a team that has somebody that's that big? I mean, you look at last year, they were able to sort of combat Cantrell with West, or with Portsmouth, because they had McDermott and Howell, but I mean, do they have somebody like that now? I mean, we'll find out when we see them. They probably already know the answer to that, but
right.
I mean, we'll find out once we see the box score from that game.
Yeah, and then if you don't, how do you counteract that? And when you try to counteract it, will it be like with Jackson, where Pendleton gets going on the backside? It's you got to figure things out, and you got to hope that Minford's not making shots, because if they're not making shots, that's when if they are making shots from the outside, that's when they're really scary. I know they had a really tough matchup with Fairland on Saturday, but everybody in the area has a tough matchup with Fairland. When this comes out, we will either be talking about Fairland in person, or we will have just done it.
So they do have, and I think I kind of remember looking at this now that I'm looking at it again. But on the roster for West on Max Preps, they do have a freshman, Macy. It's either Wisman or Weissman, something to that. I think it's Wisman or Weissman, something sort of like that. Listed as a freshman, listed at 6 foot. So I would think that's who they would go to. Emily Moore is 5'11". She's a senior, so I mean, I would assume, but still 6 foot to 6'4" is still a bit of a difference. So
yeah. By the way, I love one of the things we're going to talk about. I love some of these start times at these classics. I'll get into that in a minute, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's about all we had for that game, and then coming up on the weekend, our Saturday night game, Amanda at Circleville. This is their second time meeting up, the first time at Amanda. Circleville took that 44-41. That was, I believe, the first game. It was for sure the first game of the season for Circleville. I think it was as well for Amanda. Coming up into this one, Circleville remains undefeated, 11-0, 6-0 in the MSL. Their previous win on Friday was 44-8 over Liberty Union. That was Coach Bigham's 100th career coaching win, so congrats to him. Now, beforehand, they are at Bloom on Tuesday.
I thought you were going to say beforehand he was wearing his red pants. No, congratulations, Coach Bigham.
Before the matchup with Amanda on Saturday, they do have Bloom at Bloom on Tuesday, so that one is definitely one to look at. I don't think Bloom has... I don't know. I don't think they've jumped out to the record I thought they would, but they're still really good. They bring back Bratton, who...
And so you still have a Division I player.
Yeah, the Division I player, the reigning MSL... I think she was co-player of the year. I feel like there was one from...
Probably Taze. It probably was...
I can't remember if she won it outright or not.
The coach was... It's the coach's daughter. Yonkin.
I don't know a bunch about Bloom, but... Oh, Yonkin. I remember talking about that now. I think they were Players of the Year, but I don't totally remember. I remember talking about it in the preview, so I'd have to go back and watch. But, I mean, for Circleville, Addison Edgington, Maddie Blakeman, Gabby McConnell, those are just 3 players that you can look for them. They've been big for them all season. And then for Amanda, 9-3, 5-2 in the MSL. They have lost their last 2 games, but when you're at Unioda and at Tays Valley, you'll have that sometimes, right? In the loss against Tays, Taylor Evans with 17, Kaylee Wilson with 10. They are at home in both of their games leading up to that matchup with Circleville on Saturday. They have Hamilton, who has been pretty good to start the year, I believe, and then they have Levy and Nelsonville York on Thursday as well. So
Yeah, I'm going to leave you to saying Levy's name.
yeah,
I got it.
there you go.
But just because I
for
was doing the child-like thing, just repeating exactly what you said.
Yeah, but I mean, it's 44-41 the first time around. I'm hoping. I don't know. I mean, like I said, Amanda's lost their last 2. It was Hamilton. Was it boys or girls that they've been pretty good? Or both.
Boys,
so
especially the boys.
I don't remember what their girls' record has looked like thus far, but as like I said, they're at home for both of those with Hamilton and
should be
Nelsonville
Hamilton.
York on Tuesday and Thursday. I mean, I don't know. We'll see if Circleville goes in at 12-0 or 11-1 with Bloom. I can't remember if they. I don't think they've. I think Bloom is the last game for Circleville to wrap up their first trip around. Maybe. I mean, that would make sense because you'd be playing Amanda, who was your first game in the MSL. But I'm excited. It'll be our 3rd girls' game of the year, and I mean they're both well over 500 and as of now 9-3, 11-0 should be a fun time. And I don't know a ton about Amanda as they're like right on the edge of our coverage area.
Right.
I found Taylor Evans and Kaylee Wilson on the Sporting Pumpkin, so I'm assuming those are 2 names we can kind of expect to be saying a lot of on Saturday. But nonetheless, I mean, I really like Circleville's gym. It was really nice the last time we were there, and I'm excited to. And it's not too far of a drive either, so it should be a fun time up in Circleville on Saturday.
Yeah, I like, just from what I saw from Amanda, I think they're a well-coached team. I liked they're pretty young as well, so I mean, it's a team that I think they're going to battle, and it should be a fun game for us to just stream.
And then some games coming up also on the weekend. These are a lot of. Are these all in one classic, or are they sort of spread? A lot of non-league matchups.
So the first one for Unioda is in a different one than the other 4 games are. So
I'll let you.
Yeah, so I'll start chronologically. Unioda takes on Westville South. It was listed at 7:30 on Saturday.
A.M.?
No, p.m.
Oh, man, I was like...
No, but it was listed at 7:30 p.m., but it is actually a 12 o'clock noon start. They play Westville South. Westville South's a good program. This is probably, to me, the most winnable game of the 5 that we'll kind of go over. But, you know, Westville South's a good program. That would be a really good win for Unioda. That's at the Classic in the city. That is, I believe, at Ohio Dominican, or it could be at Pickerington. Either one. I know it's in Columbus. Then, Portsmouth against Mason. Talk about a school size difference in this one, as Mason is one of the biggest schools in the state. Portsmouth is not.
No,
they're not Division 4, but they're Division 3. You know, Mason plays a really tough schedule. It's having a really, really good year. That's at the Classic in the Country up at Berlin Highland. That should be a really good, you know, test for Portsmouth. And then here's where it kind of sucks. Fairland against Gilmore Academy at 9 a.m. I'm just pulling up right now. I know they probably do have matchups that may be technically better, but if you just look at the Max Preps rankings, Fairland 7th in the state, Gilmore Academy 12th. This is a 9 a.m. game, and you know Gilmore plays one of the toughest schedules in the state. They're 6-2. I think it's going to be a great test for Fairland. Funny thing is, second blue and white academy that they will play on the week, because they play Gaia Academy earlier in the week. So, really good test for them. That will be on Monday for Fairland. The following game will be Unioda against Olentangy. Olentangy is the 5th ranked team in the state.
A lot of high-ranked teams.
A lot of high-ranked teams in this. And, that's going to be a really good sophomore matchup in that one for Unio and Olentangy. It's going to be a really tough game. Before looking at Gilmore, I was like, this is probably the toughest game of the weekend. But I think this, the Gilmore and Olentangy games should both be really tough. Olentangy, the last I had saw, was unbeaten. So that'll be a really good test for Uniota. And then finally, the last one will be Portsmouth against the Laurel School. Okay. Do you know anything about the Laurel School?
No.
Okay. The Laurel School is in the northern Ohio area. What mascot do you think they have?
Okay, say that again. I was zoned out.
Okay, Laurel School is in northern Ohio. I think it's around the Cleveland area. What mascot do you think they have? Now, I don't know. They may have had something that was offensive. So I think this is a newer mascot. But
And
northern Ohio. We'll just say in the Cleveland area.
Northern. I mean,
so you really got to really think, what's the worst mascot for a northern Ohio school?
I mean,
There's a college that has the same mascot.
in that area?
No.
Oh, where's the college at?
Well, if I say it, then it gives it away, but it's in the southern part of the country.
Man,
And you got to think it's not offensive.
and it's not offensive.
Yeah.
I was gonna say if it's Cleveland, it was probably like Indians or something, but
No, like it might have been before, but it's not that now. No, it's
is it the Guardians?
No.
God, I don't know.
they're the Gators.
The Gators.
Yes.
That's like not
Cleveland,
even...
Ohio Gators. Like, that's horrible. I love it so much. But it's not the worst because Anderson, which is in Cincinnati, I think they were the Redskins. They are now the Raptors.
Well, that's not. The Raptors aren't too bad because like nobody has. Like, why does Toronto have the Raptors?
Right.
Or were dinosaurs more prominent in Canada?
No, it's because Jurassic Park came out at the same time.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess.
I wish I was kidding, but yeah.
God.
But it's like, Memphis is the Grizzlies, but
Well, like Los
that was the
Angeles is
Northwest.
the Lakers.
Yeah,
and-
they don't have lakes. Utah's the Jazz, and they're not allowed to have music in Utah, so you never know.
What are some other bad like relocated mascots that didn't change? Man, I feel like there have to be like some NFL teams that. Does Chicago have Bears? Why? I mean,
They've always been the Bears, but Cleveland was the Rams, and
Really?
then it ended up being St. Louis. Then it went to L.A. Then went to St. Louis. Then went to L.A.
Well, the Browns, or no, the Colts were like the Baltimore Colts.
Baltimore Colts, yeah.
And they moved to Indy, which I don't really think a horse really matters, but I mean, I don't know.
The Jazz and the Lakers are the worst
Yeah,
ones.
I mean, are the Ravens? Is a raven like the national
Uh,
state
Ed-
bird
Edgar
of
Allan Poe.
Maryland? Is he from Maryland?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's why, but
Well, that's the name of their three. They have three mascots.
Oh,
and it's Edgar
okay.
Allan Poe.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny.
yeah, because he was in the Naval Academy, which is over around there.
Have you ever like read some of his stuff?
It's super fun.
Oh, it's so weird.
Yeah,
like,
it's not depressing
I
at
don't
all.
remember the names, but like they made us read them in high school, and like one of them was like about him killing a guy and like dismembering him and stuff, and he like buried him under his floorboards, and like
It's not the Count of Monte Cristo.
and when the cops, no, that's not
No,
even.
I know that's not him.
Not even. Yeah, what?
No,
we watched that in French class.
That was the guy who wrote the Three Musketeers. That was
Of course it was.
oh my God.
But he like.
I almost said Descartes, but it's definitely not Descartes.
But he like when the cops came over to like interrogate him, he could like hear the dude's heart beating in his head or something.
Oh, it's the Telltale Heart.
Yeah. And then there was another one about like a black cat that he like hit over the head or like chopped his head off with an axe or something weird. I don't even remember how that
Dumas
went.
wrote the Three Musketeers and the Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, yeah, I remember we watched that because the dude got like wrongly imprisoned in something, and he like met some old dude and like crawled out and like got out in like a dead body bag, or I don't even know if I'm thinking of the right movie anymore, but I think I am. Right? He gets imprisoned, and he like whenever prisoners die, they put him in a body bag and like throw him in the
yeah.
water. And like his cellmate died, and he like snuck into the dude's body bag, and they threw him into the water, and he I don't know if somehow lived. I don't know.
Sounds like I feel like that was very healthy water. If you have dead bodies in it.
I mean, he was. It wasn't Alcatraz, but it was something like that. Like it was just an island with a prison and nothing else. But I don't even remember. I don't even know if that's the right movie. I think it is.
Yeah, we'll go with it. I mean, it's fun.
Did you get done talking about those games, or did we just?
Yeah, we're done talking about the game. I was just going to look up some more horrendously grotesque things from Edgar Allan Poe. He had a nice mustache. He just looked depressed.
Well, I mean,
he was, but
yeah.
I mean, me too. But I was. Yeah, one of the things on. Wait, what? Okay, I'm not going to worry about this.
Uptown Mo Brick.
Uptown Poe.
Uptown Poe.
We need to put some eyeliner on him, and that way he'd be Uptown Poe.
Don. It doesn't fit on sideways.
I know, that's why I was going to have to put it backwards.
You're making that a lot harder than it needed to be. Put Brick's hat on him.
Hold on.
Not or that.
His body's way too big.
Are they different sizes?
No, but like his back thing.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a fence?
I don't know.
Or it's a barrel, I think. Either way, it's weird. But yeah, let's go the Funky Bunch or the Frost Bunch.
McNugget buddies.
Yeah.
You
could be a McNugget too. Some days everyone's a McNugget. Is that what it is?
No, it's on the side of the maybe, but on the side of the box it says, "What if one day you woke up as a McNugget?"
Yeah, I would probably be Don Bernice. Just to throw it out there.
I'd definitely be. I mean,
Brick.
Yeah, Brick or Uptown Mo.
I don't like being cold, so I'd probably be more Uptown Mo as well.
Yeah, I don't really want to get a pencil tattoo, so I don't really want to be.
Like I just don't think I could get a tattoo right there.
Why? Because it hurt? Or?
Yeah, and it'd be on your face.
Yeah.
Like, this is bad enough. So,
did you see the thing about the guy? There was like a contest online. This may have been old. And what was it?
Got the call letters on his forehead.
Yeah, but what was it? What were the letters?
Horrible.
It was the name of the radio station,
yeah.
And it was like a $500,000 reward. And he took him to court because when he showed up, they just laughed at him like, "Dude, we're not doing that." I wonder, do you think he won? I bet he did.
I feel like he won.
I don't know if he won 5. He probably won more than that because he probably got the reward money, then like damages and stuff.
Judge Joe
was that
Brown
recent?
Face tattoo. Well, it was definitely Judge Joe Brown. There's no way it wasn't Judge Joe Brown.
I don't remember what judge it was. It was one of those like TV judge shows.
He won a ruling in his own lawsuit. Oh my gosh. TV judge show face tattoo. Now this says face tattoo Judge Joe Brown. Judge outstars face tattoo crud.
Oh, crud. Yeah, that's what it was. CURD or CRUD.
KRUD.
Or KRUD, whatever.
Yeah, because it's got to start with a K. That's why there's like all kinds of kiss. Oh, I saw a real depressing.
Did it say if he won?
I think I'd have to like. These are like clickbait things, but I saw a real depressing TikTok the other day. It was this guy from Kiss FM out of Columbus, and he was talking about how there's like, I think Texas has like 10 Kiss FMs, and it's like they try to make it seem like it's their own thing, and the guy was like, listen to these mom and pop stations because obviously we know Ryan Seacrest isn't in Columbus when he says he's at WNCI, and then this guy says like, points to the thing, he's like, make sure you listen to us and thing, whatever, or subscribe. And then the next day I saw the station's closing. And it had a bunch of likes and stuff. If it could have used likes on the TikTok, then it would have been a good thing.
All right, well, I think this is a pretty long episode.
Yeah, Alexander Dumas was born Dumas Davy de la Pelletieri. You're welcome.
Something like that.
He was French.
All right, well, I think that'll do it for us today. I'm not sure if this will come out on Monday or Tuesday. It'll come out on one of the two.
At some point.
But
his son was also named Alexander Dumas Fitz, which means son, not Junior. So when you have a kid named Dewey Dailey, you can name him Dewey Dailey son.
Oh.
Son, just don't name him Junior.
All right.
Sure, that'd go well.
Well, I think that'll about do it.
Yes.
That's all we have for you on today's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by McDonald's.